Welcome, everybody.
Day.
Oh, hey, everyone.
Hi. Lots of familiar faces and some new faces. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hi,
Mm,
David. Good to see
mm.
you again.
Nice to see you too.
I am Karen Weatherford, and I am your host for today. And I am here with our beloved Dr. David Drake. And
Okay, all right. So I'm going to shoot to be there.
I'm going to mute a few people. There we go. If you are not muted and you think it's wise, or I can mute you all if you're ready for that, go ahead and do so, please. Welcome to our final Beyond Coaching experience for 2023. And I don't mean to sound ominous, but it is a wonderful, wonderful benchmark. Our theme this whole year, each month for the 90 minutes that we spent, has been on readiness and how to cultivate readiness to cultivate our hearts, the way we show up, and how we are in the world. And this particular focus is part 2 of our specific theme on commitment. Part 2 meaning that we used part of the deep learning that we use at the Moment Institute to join into what is it about commitments that we want to pay attention to. And we fleshed up so many nuances of that last week. And we're going to do it again in a reverse direction. And you'll know what I mean when we get into it. So we spun around one way, we're going to spin around in another way. So I'd like to turn our attention over to Dr. Drake, who's going to get us started, David. And David is actually, I'm going to say this out loud for you, has just landed over in Europe and is, entering into this in amazing ways. So we all are going to have grace for each other from wherever we're coming from, because it is the season. So David.
Thank you, Karen. Yeah, as many of you know, I've been dealing with consequences of significant COVID most of the year, and some of the regimens that I've done really well to help myself with, and to largely have recovered, clashed with my regimen for overseas travel. So, I so if my energy feels a little bit low, just know that I love you and I'm very glad to be here. So I'll do my best to be as engaging as I can be, but heaven only knows what's going to happen. So that's part of the mystery of life. So a couple of years, thank you, Pamela. I love that. Just what I needed. That's good. A couple of years ago, we ran a pilot of the narrative release philosophy that underpins everything that we do, and had just a wonderful time. We were in just the heart of the lockdowns and pandemics, so it was a really perfect time for that. And so one of the models we created there have now evolved. We did one way last time, and we'll do it the other way this time. And part of this is that, kind of in our gung-ho society, we just keep wanting to move, especially for those of us in America, it seems like we're always pushing forward. And we don't actually I don't observe, we don't often take enough time to resource ourselves to really check, do I really have the energy for this? Is this what I really want to be doing? I've never been a
David froze on my screen. I don't know about for you guys. Yes. Well, he'll be back.
Poignant pause.
Poignant pause. He said, "I've never been one for fill in the blank." How would you fill in that blank? You can think in your mind's eye. Because
He's letting the moment breathe.
Go ahead, David.
He's letting the moment breathe.
Yes. It isn't a bad moment to just kind of get oriented ourselves. So everybody just do what they need to do to get grounded. And I don't have a need to fill the space. Well, we lost him, so he's going to come back in. Let's see. I got you. I have to ask him, is that a virtual background or is that real? because I want to be there.
It's virtual.
Okay, it's a little too dreamy. It's gonna be wonderful. Yeah. Well, since he has had to sign off and come back in, does anybody have anything that's come up who was here last time when we talked about commitments that they would like to bring into the room? And then know that we'll just cut it off if one David joins us.
Unmuted people, unmuted Laurel. I don't know what was it you, Patricia? No, that wasn't for me. No, it's okay. Gosh.
Can you mute everybody, Karen?
Yeah,
I'm having a bit of a spell, okay?
1 second.
Thank-
And
Thank
that'll
you.
mute you too, David. So there you go.
Okay, I can unmute myself, I think.
Yep, I think so.
My video, most of you know what I look like. I'm going to try to see, I don't know what happened to Zoom. It just decided it didn't like me and got rid of me. So what I was about to do before I was rudely interrupted by Zoom was to show you the slides so we could kind of walk through a couple of these things together. Let's see if it's all still here. It is. Excellent. No, it doesn't want to. Interesting. Okay, let's try this again. Zoom is just being really strange. It's frozen. Okay, let's try this again. Did it disappear again? Oh, there it is. So I'm trying to get the Zoom to allow me to share my screen. It doesn't want to share my screen. So hold on 1 second.
Your video is stopped.
What is that?
Your video is not showing.
Yes, the video should be off actually because I turned it off. So let me just, yeah, it's off. So that's why it's not doing anything. I'm trying to see if I can help Zoom be
David,
cooperative.
would you like me to share my screen?
No, that's okay. I don't know. We'll see.
Okay, I'll be your backup.
Thank you. I would appreciate the offer, and let's see how if Zoom cooperates. Otherwise, we'll just, no, it doesn't, huh? Maybe you can share your screen because it's not wanting me to,
Okay.
it's not allowing me to share screens.
Right.
So how about if you put yours up? I don't know what's happening, but there's
I
no
will
point
do
in
so.
puttering around more. I'll just get
switch
rid of
modes here
this.
for a second.
And if not, we can just, I'm gonna bless you now, Karen. You can actually lead this for me if my Zoom doesn't cooperate. I've deputized you.
Okay. All right, I'll share. Here we go.
All right. Oh, good. Yours is working.
Mhm.
All right. So if you could go to the full screen one, that would be great.
Okay. Yeah.
The little monitors icon at the very far right on the bottom. On the bottom. Below the pictures.
Yeah,
Keep going,
I'm working on
keep
that.
going, keep going. Yay, right there. No,
Here?
too far.
Nope.
No,
Here?
the little icon right there. Perfect.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, got notes there too. All right.
We
where
don't
did
want that
go?
note. All right.
Okay. Where would you like to go?
Are you on a PC?
Yes.
That's why it's doing this.
I see.
Okay.
Patience, please. Thank you, everybody.
All right. So
Where would you like me to go?
perfect. So just if you click a couple more times, it should show the rest of that screen. There we go.
Okay.
Perfect. And for those who are impatient, you have next slides to entertain you. They're already up and ready to go. So when we met in November, we talked about commitment in terms of two B's that often kind of get in our way when our commitments are not in the right place or not being very effective or mature for us. And so we talked a lot about burnout as overcommitting ourselves, and we talked a lot about battles when we're committed to often our own truth or our own position, and we don't do well like in conflict because we're too attached to certain things. And you'll see all these after we do our guided practice for those of you who weren't there last time, so we can feel caught up. and prepared for what we're going to do today. So if you could go to the next slide, please. All right, so I'm going to let you just read this. We had this last time, but I want to just put this here as a reminder again. Yeah. So we often think of commitments as something a promise we're making for a certain future, or we're trying to push towards something, and which is fine on occasions. But if you're like me, I probably have spent months of my life um, dealing with commitments I made that I later regretted, or didn't really serve the purpose that I thought at the time. And so one of the things we talk a lot about in our programs is using whatever is present to us in the moment as our curriculum. That's the source or the resource that we're drawing on to kind of make more clear to ourselves what's actually happening here, what's actually important to us about what's happening here, what do we want to do about what's happening here. And so rather than trying to kind of move out towards the future, we're actually dropping into our own center, for example, to see if we even want to make the commitment at all. And so if you go to the next screen, a couple of wonderful quotes from a couple of people that write a lot in the sort of Buddhism and psychology spaces. But I love the graphic that goes with each of these. And I'll let you just like look at the pictures and read this for a minute. Then I'm going to talk a bit about how it sets up what we're going to do next. So part of this for me is that when we maybe get in trouble or overextend ourselves or whatever in terms of our commitments, it's often because we're pushing. And we're trying to concretize something and make it a decision and make it an action. And at times when we may not actually be ready for it. And it's particularly when there's commitments related to things that are difficult, or we experience as being hard for us, or super important, and or hard, difficult, like I said. So a lot of what we're trying to do with this next process is help us to recognize what resources would we need, either inside ourselves or outside of ourselves, to be more fully prepared to actually decide on the commitment we're thinking about making, and that sort of readiness. And so you can see this in our own life, but you also can see this with our clients' life. Clients sometimes get really excited, like in coaching, when they have a realization because of our work with them. And they get excited because, oh, I can do that, or now I see this, and they have, these aha moments. And so oftentimes they're kind of wanting to move on before they're actually really ready to do so. Or they think they've really grasped something when in reality they've just begun the journey. So a lot of this is just helping ourselves be with what's present, and resource ourselves to make not only better commitments, but commitments we actually want to and can fulfill quite well. So if you could put up the next slide, that would be great. So this is the one that we did last time. And it's a series of sort of breath awarenesses that relate a lot to what we do in the combination of NR and integrative development in particular. And just for those of you, just really briefly, for those of you who weren't here last time, we started there on one of just breathing out. A lot of the beginning of these kind of journeys is a sigh or an exhale. In the narrative coaching world, we think of this as compost. What is the person going to be separating from? What are they releasing from? Maybe it's an attachment to perfection. And as a descent into a greater maturity by beginning to see the situation differently. And then in this new space, maybe they've never been before, don't go very often, they're having to breathe with something, an experience they're not used to having. For me, sometimes I struggle to allow myself to be fully appreciated. So when people appreciate me, I have to kind of breathe with the appreciation to allow myself to receive it. So I'm releasing into the reception. And there's some sense of curate, like what are we learning from that? And that's going to be important to us. And there's sort of a mystery of this because, again, there's often things we're not comfortable with ourselves or not familiar to ourselves, and so a lot of the work there is just that releasing into. And the more that we can do that, then we begin the journey back up again. And we breathe in, and oftentimes we can breathe in more than we could before because we've actually done some work kind of to deepen that sort of cradle or the crucible in the bottom there, and it allows us to kind of begin to channel a new kind of energy, and maybe a new part of ourself that was maybe a bit more nascent or less developed before. And this is our ascent into a greater mastery, and in a sense of releasing for what, like what do I want to do now that maybe I couldn't do or do as well before, or and then we come around the top, and just start to recognize and appreciate, release with what am I bringing from this process I've just been in. And now we're breathing through now from ourselves out into the environment we're in some kind of new way. And the sense we had was this is a real important and often overlooked stage of completion. And we often want to rush on to the next thing as opposed to actually letting ourselves fully integrate and have a sense of full completion with the journey we've just been on. And that journey could have been 2 minutes of breathing. It could be 2 years of long work on a big issue in your life. And then sort of then to begin to process the memory, the somatic memory, the mental memory, emotional memory, to begin to sort of incarnate or embed that in ourselves. And then we return back to situate, but now from a very different place. So it's great to move across this cycle, starting with exhale, if what we're seeking is kind of to manifest or to articulate or to move towards outer reward, something that we're moving towards to kind of go do. And so that's wonderful. And if you imagine back in times in your life, for example, when you got caught off guard with a piece of bad news, or you were overwhelmed by a big decision, or you had a hard choice that you really struggled with, or whatever, or somebody says something about you you don't like at all, and all of a sudden you're just like, whoa. And so sometimes starting with it takes your breath away, or you've already exhaled just to even be in that moment, and now you've got no resource to actually kind of build up what you might need to deal with something that you hadn't planned on or is bigger than you were expecting. And that's where we move. So before we move to the next slide and sort of show you what that looks like, I want to see, particularly for any of you who were not there last time, but for anyone, if there's anything about the full circle you would like to ask or share before we look at what it's like in reverse.
Would you like me to stop sharing, Dave?
I'm sure we can do that. So I'm just curious what comes up for you when you see this, or when you saw this. Robert.
Thank you, David. What came up for me is I'm just wondering, with this, there's a kind of a cliche, name it and claim it, that the hidden barriers, if we can name it, it is as a step forward. And to claim it is then to be able to process. But what if it has no name? It seems like it might be a process that would give it a name of some sort, or at least some sense of what it's like.
Yeah.
Very complex thing you're talking about here.
Yeah. What I observe often is that when, again, like I was saying, when we name it, we're tempted to want to claim it right away, but we don't really know what the name means or the impact of the name. And you see this a lot. Like I used to do a lot of large scale change projects and a lot of grief work, and people would, they would sort of casually talk about a loss of something or something going away, and then and so they felt like they named it, but they really hadn't felt it yet. They really hadn't breathed into it to really know what it meant or what it stood for, or actually this size or scale or type of loss it actually was, or what they actually did lose. Oftentimes they would just share what was most top of mind or present to them. But a lot of what we're trying to do in this work is use our breath to kind of navigate our own inner landscape and figure out what is it that I need to kind of use my breath to access in this process that I might otherwise my little running ego might want to just sweep away and feel like it was done.
I'd like to contribute, David.
Yeah, Karen, great.
So I read something just this last week about thinking of mystery as its own character. And what if mystery itself was the only certainty we had? And we joined mystery with a capital M to ask, what do you have for us to understand? And what would you like to ask of us?
Love it. Yeah.
And I see Colleen's hand up.
Hey, Colleen.
Hey, thanks, Karen. David, I was curious about in the first phase there, you have the word compost. If you could describe a bit more for that, what that means.
Yeah, so in the narrative coaching model, we just call it separate, but it's a lot of people, particularly when they're dealing with things that are challenging for them at work or in their life, want to just get rid of things. And kind of like separate it from it and move on. But in reality, a lot of the energy that was stuck in that is going to be useful to us. It was trapped in that. So if we just throw it away, oftentimes we've never really harvested or composted the nutrients that are in it to allow us to use that to our what we need to do next. And you can think about this in many of your own lives. If you have a parent who's maybe passed away a long time ago, but every now and then you think of them again and you go through another little layer of grief or another new perspective or awakening that you didn't have before. And so for me, the composting is that if we allow ourselves to immerse ourselves what we're doing in the breathing out and really be with the exhale. Many people discover their exhale is actually much deeper than they realize, particularly when they're dealing with something that's important to them. And so the compost is we're going to breathe out and just really appreciate what we just contributed to that space with our breath and and so when we're releasing from something, so maybe like I said, it's an attachment or an addiction to being perfect. And part of our struggle with commitment is we don't want to commit because we haven't got it all perfect yet. And so maybe the compost is, just kind of letting go of some of the elements of that perfection, other people's stories about us, pressures that we felt that were not useful to us, distractions from the real truth of what's happening, that we kind of need to let decompose and fall away, but they don't go away because nothing ever goes away. But those nutrients can so I'm really diligent about things that are important to me. But in the past, I might have used that that got in my way because I had to get all figured out. So I could be diligent and get all perfect before I could even get started. And now I'm thinking, maybe I want to use my diligence to ensure that I deliver on what I decided really well. So I've got to compost the attachment of that energy to one form, but I'm going to need it again in another part of the process. And
Robert, I do see your hand, but Grace has put something in the room and she can't use her mic to join us. So if I could read her question.
Yeah, that'd be great. And then we'll move on and we'll do the practice together.
Okay. And Grace says, I am curious, why use the breath to facilitate this process? What does the breath provide? What are the experiences people have when using the breath that makes it a good access point?
Great questions. So in this case, we're not like a lot of like meditative trainings and other yoga trainings. You're literally using your breath as an instrument in your process. This is not quite like that. We're using our breath as a sort of mirror onto ourself. And so we're kind of maybe exaggerating some of the exhale or inhale, but we're just kind of noticing what emerges when we're doing that. And I do that because in most of the West, we tend to live most of our life in our head. And most of the successes and failures of our commitments are not because of our head. It's because we didn't listen to the rest of us. And so I find the breath, without having to go, full on into somatic mode, the breath just provides a really often casual way of, I'm just breathing out. How hard can that be? And then you breathe out and go, oh, wow, that was like bigger than I realized. And so I find the breath, because breath is energy. In breath, one of the origins of the word breath is the same word as the word for wind and spirit. And so we're trying to access more of ourselves. We're trying to get more in the flow of what's actually happening in us, so that we have that available to us for this process. If we try to do these things in our head, we don't get very far, because our ego will convince us of all kinds of things, or our fears will drive us to make decisions we don't really want. So, all right. So, yeah, thanks, Karen, for taking care of Grace. I'd like to go ahead and just give us a practice in our new version of this, just again for us to have some material to work with. And then we're going to show you in the last part of the program, we'll have a long period of time for you to be in some small groups together to talk about what some of this might mean for you. All right. So if you wouldn't mind, I'll go ahead and just guide you so you can just relax. If it helps you, you can close your eyes. If not, don't worry, it's all fine too. And just allow yourself to be comfortable. And you might just sort of familiarize yourself with your own breathing. What is your breath doing now? There's no need to breathe in any kind of special way, but just be aware of your breath. And is your torso moving? So just relax into your breath. So as we start this practice, I would like you to bring into your mind's eye something that is present to you in your life or your practice, for which you don't currently feel as resourced as you would like. And those resources can come in many forms. So just see what's true for you. Where do you feel under-resourced in your life right now? And as you think about that, those resources can come from within yourself or around yourself, or both. So we're going to use this practice to help you begin to gather more of the resources that you need. So as you think about whatever's in your mind's eye right now, I'd like you just to think about, what resources do you have? Maybe pick one. And I'd like you just to hold that and just breathe through that and just sort of see what comes up when you allow yourself to really notice, embody the resource you do have in this particular situation. If you had maybe an argument with a friend and you don't know how to reconcile or come back together, one resource you might have is many years of deep friendship with this person. So bring up any memories, any associations, any images of the resource you have that's going to help you discover how to bring more resource to bear on what you're dealing with. And as we move down to the next phase, I'd like to just have you breathe in as fully as you can. Imagine that you're bringing into yourself this resource you've identified that's going to be there for you. This is a releasing for what? How could this resource help you in the spaces where you don't feel as full and ready? What would it be like to channel this as you contemplate whatever's in your mind at the moment? In what ways have you already mastered this particular resource enough where it can add some value here? So as you notice your in-breath, just see if it starts to relax a bit and maybe get a bit fuller. And as you drop into the third phase, I'd like you just to breathe with what you've just encountered in yourself. What could you curate from this and bring forward that might help you either see your situation in a new way, feel more able in the situation? And right now, this might seem a bit unclear, but that's the nature of mystery. As you breathe into it, just see what starts to emerge for you that might shed some light on what else you could do to resource yourself right now. Then we move to the fourth phase. I'd like you just to exhale and notice if the thing that was sort of on your mind at the very beginning, see if it's changing now. See if the bringing of this resource is helping you to let go of some things that might be in the way or impeding your ability to resource yourself more. Maybe the strength or resource you brought was stamina, but now you're realizing you want to compost some of the stamina and make more space to mature yourself by asking people for help more often. What is this resource enabling you to see or to face or to feel that sheds light again on what's being invited for you in terms of inner resourcing yourself to kind of tackle whatever was on your mind when you began this? And then we move all the way up to the top again to complete. What are you noticing now about your dilemma or situation or choice that you started with that wasn't there in the beginning, that might speak to how you feel more resourced or resourced in a different way now? And so as we begin to close this process, just notice what you're leaving with. That and when you're ready, you can open your eyes and come back to the room. And Karen, we'll just leave off the slides for a minute. We'll put them back on in a minute, but I want to just let everybody see each other and just to see if whatever came up for you that you'd like to share. What did you all discover? MJ, there you are. You're on mute, MJ.
Where I felt under-resourced was in decision-making. I am 1 month into leaving a full-time job and
Wow, okay.
deciding what I want to do. So there's that decision-making, and the resource I chose was discernment. That I will know which of these things I want to move toward, because I do creative workshops and I do professional development things. And I ended feeling with a sense of not rushing, that there is time to examine the choices, and also a sureness that I will know.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you. And Colleen, your hand was up. Did you change your mind, or do you still want to say something?
I was just going to comment that I think for me, the resource that I'm not tapping enough into is patience. And that's with respect to some decisions that I need to make going forward. So similar to what MJ was saying. So it's really leaning into that and relying on that. And in combination of my resource of empathy, of not letting that overpower and turning that down just a little bit.
Okay, great. And Jim, good to see you.
Thank you. First of all, thank you. I think I really needed that relax time. It was it was like ethereal. It was really nice. But yeah, it was kind of funny. When we started off today, I was thinking, what is my commitment? And what kept coming up for me is commitment to the moment. So I wanted to share that. And then resource, somehow I've been thinking, okay, I've got so many coaching colleagues that are certified in everything, and I thought, oh, where do I want to get certified? And then I felt like I had this scarcity around it. And then my resource that I have available is connection. And it just really felt like that is the part of me that really, fulfills me and works so well for my clients. And so I felt like that externalized resource was actually no longer valid and play into where I want to take my practice and deepen it.
And what did you sense was different for yourself at the end?
Just kind of connecting to what I know inside, like remembering that. And I think that's where the breathing and the letting go through the meditation really supported me.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Yeah, I've been thinking along similar lines lately. I'm just fascinated by our proclivity to label things as good or bad or up or down or right or wrong. And there's some of that, but I just, I think about so many of for many of us, my clients and family, myself, things that we thought, oh, this is a great decision, and then turned out to be not so much because things changed or something happened. Things were crummy decisions, and then they turned out to be amazing opportunities. And so I think I've just come for myself to relax a bit more about worrying about so many of these things. Yeah, I find a lot of liberation in that. So, all right. Anything in the chat box, Karen? You're on mute, but I see you're shaking your head no.
No, there's not. And Robert has his hand up.
Okay, I'll take one from Robert, and then we'll move on and get ready for your small groups.
Thank you, David. Before, when I had my hand up, I just wanted to thank you for that process of just going through the full circle. It was and the discussion thereafter. That was I've been wrestling with a lot of these same themes all my life, but I didn't have the academic rigor and the professional attitude and maturity to do a lot with them, or other than just kind of identify it. And so this has been a very good structural adjustment. So, but in this exercise that we're talking about now, I thought one of the few resources that I really recognize as open-ended is time. As a retired person with not any real strong commitments in most areas of my life, I have lots of time, whatever time for 24 hours a day. Some of it's just sleeping and eating, and et cetera. So the amount of real choice in my life, in the time I have to choose my desire, is limited. And that the structure that is missing in my life, the kind of haphazard, ad lib my life that I've done all my life, that can be changed. I have a choice in that matter.
Yep.
What needs to be a structure, or there's missing structures that are showing up as missing, and a lack. Those can be assembled, and what I need to assemble them out of is the time that I have been using inefficiently. That's not the right word. Wastefully, time I've been using inappropriately. And that is a freedom. There's a freedom there, that a lot of these things are kind of like ideas that I have, and concepts, and nice, noble thoughts. That was the other thing from the earlier question, that these things that are, that this process is opening up something that I know conceptually, but that's right next door to useless, just to have it as a concept. If it's not, if it's not accessible in my real life. So that's pretty much what I want. If I say anything more, I'll probably just start babbling. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. I appreciate it, and I appreciate your awareness. It's that time is you just practice time management really well. It's great. I'm
working on it.
Thank you. I just want to welcome an old friend, Andrew, to the call. Andrew, I just landed in Berlin, and my Wi-Fi and accoutrements are not cooperating, so I've turned my video off. That's why you can't see me. So it's good to see you.
Great to see you too, and sorry for being a bit late. It's the time zone in Australia is a bit different, so
yeah, it is. Michelle knows that well. Andrew's down in Melbourne way, I think. All right. So can you please put up the slides again, Karen? Good to see you too, Christopher, and I'll get back to your email. So I'll get back to you soon. But can we have the slides again, please? You're on mute. This is not our Zoom day. How exciting. Are they working, Karen, or not? We don't know. I'm gonna go see if mine will cooperate then. Let's see where we are here. Nope, still nothing. How funny. It doesn't want to recognize the slides. So Karen, can you come off mute and let me know what's happening on your side?
Sorry, my screen took over. I think I can do something with it now. It may not be the exact view you want, but give me a second.
It's okay.
Okay. Can you see that?
I can. So if you could progress it to slide 7, please.
Okay.
All right. So this is just I don't want to spend too much time here, but just to catch up the people that are just came to this one. We kind of looked at 4 sort of areas where we get in trouble with our commitments. And so if in the beginning here, we talked a lot about burnout as when we're just overcommitted, over booked, over everything and situate. We're just drowning in the what is of our life. And we often don't even exhale because we're just like having to gulp for air. And so we thought part of the value of this process of helping us to move beyond our burnout is to shift our perspective. And that was often would take us into search. What do we need to compost? What do we need to discover? What do we need to reconnect with around our values and release ourselves from? So that was one frame we used last time in terms of helping ourselves when we're feeling burnt out, which is very easy to find these days. And our burnout is in part a demand from our world, but it's mostly our choice of stories. So if we could move to the next one, Karen, that would be great. Yeah, so this one we talked a lot about when we get caught up in battles. We get locked into what is and what is not, and who's right and who's wrong, and we often don't. Well, what if, and so we get all these sort of debates and all these sort of polarities and things, and we're just fighting it out in search to see what we're actually going to bring forward. And what we often lose is a sense of purpose, the bigger picture, what actually matters. And so for me, one of the ways we were sort of thinking about is starting to breathe with the mystery of not knowing what's going to help bring reconciliation, but staying guided by what actually matters to us. I often observed, and I used to do a lot more work with groups or couples, was that oftentimes if I just got them to switch chairs, the arguments often dissipated on their own. They were so locked into where they were sitting and what they're feeling and what they're thinking, and energies were kind of that you could just like paint the picture. And so I want to just move on to the next slide. And yeah, so yours, the animations don't carry to the PCs. I didn't know that, so now I do. I had this really clever animation for this, but it's the same thing here for this sense of burden. So again, part of our commitments, it relates kind of to burnout, but the burden is more of an internal experience, whereas burnout is often our response to the outer world. Burden is things that we carry, baggage for other people. If you've ever done family constellation work, you would run smack dab into burdens. And part of when we're feeling burdened, we can't breathe in. And we're running around doing lots of things. We're making things happen for everybody else. And we're often dealing with all these burdens on our own. And so our channels get clogged, and we're resentful or whatever happens to us when we feel burdened. And so again, we've lost perspective. Like, why am I carrying this? Why am I doing this yet again? Why did I say yes when every fiber of my being wanted to say no? Why am I the last one who's stuck cleaning up the party when everybody else has gone home? And so it's when you actually think about what's actually working here, and it's not working for us when we get trapped in our burdens. We end up feeling like we have to carry all these things that we think matter. And so again, the invitation around commitments is how can we use our in-breath to notice, am I breathing in fully and sort of in a more free or liberated way? Or is my in-breath kind of constrained by these burdens that I feel like I'm carrying? And so I'll just move quickly to the last one, and then we'll give you a chance to talk to each other. So busyness, again, quite connected to what we were doing with some of the other ones, but I just wanted to just have our 4th B, so I have fun alliterations this way. But busyness for me often is when we don't ever complete a lot. We're always doing lots of things. It is almost like it's almost replaced hello in many sort of professional or organizational conversations, because If you don't think so, just try when somebody has it going. Oh, I'm doing fine. I'm not doing anything, or I'm not busy at all. No one ever says that. It's almost like a defeat, or it's a sort of a yeah. We almost would feel ashamed. I'm relaxed. How are you? But we have this sort of badge of honor we feel like we're supposed to wear with busyness. And it often means we're attached or even addicted at times to what works. And we have lots of things on the go and lots of things in the works and, and such. And then again, like the one at the bottom, we've lost our sense of purpose. Like, why are we doing all these things? Why do who are we being busy for? And so there's a lot of, one of the ways we find ourselves helping ourselves with busyness is to make as many completions as possible and then not pick them back up again. Anyways, so this was a way just to begin to think about, as we look at some sort of nuances of commitments, how could we use our narrative coaching model to begin to understand in the full circle of breathing to help us understand what flavor of commitment challenges do I have? Where do I find myself getting stuck that's causing me to have trouble with my commitments? And how might this framing help us think about what we could do about that? Okay. So I want to just give you some time to talk to each other, unless anybody has a important question for right now. Otherwise, I'd like to just move into our practice, if that's okay. And Karen, while I'm asking people for any more questions, I think now, given the time, can we do groups of 2, please?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. So all I'm going to ask you to do is write down one thing you've learned this year and one commitment you have for next year that you want to make as a result of your answer to the first half of the question. What is one thing this year's taught you, or that you've learned this year about yourself, about life, about what you're doing? Jim made a little bit of mention about that, but and if that's true, then what is a commitment you'd like to make for yourself for next year? And then we're going to put you in pairs, not threes now, just because of time and because of some of the Zoom snafus. When it's your turn, I'd like you just to share what feels important to you about what you wrote down in the answer to number 1. And your partner is just going to listen. If your partner wants to ask, I want you to, in narrative coaching terms, inquire into what they said, not about. So you're not gathering more information unless you didn't understand something. You're inquiring of their experience. Like, what are they noticing about themselves that they just said what they said? How does that feel for them? Where does it show up in their body? We might reflect back what we saw in their body posture. So you're helping them gain a deeper understanding of themselves as a storyteller. And then if you want to respond to that, your partner's queries, you can, and then sort of summarize that at the end, and then switch sides and do it again. So I'd like to give you like, say 20 minutes, and that will give you 10 minutes apiece to just share and see where you get to. And then we'll come back and we'll see what you discovered, and then we'll wrap it up for today.
Okay, we are ready to roll, and we have one group of 3, so that wasn't how it planned out, and we'll see you back in 20 minutes, folks. Thank you so much.
Karen, do you want to join the group?
No, I'm good. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay, I thought we could. Okay, great.
Okay.
Enjoy, folks. Back up again. There we go. All right.
Welcome.
So we have just a couple of more small slides, but I just want to check in and see what you discovered. And Michelle, you're sitting in a different room in the house.
I am. I'm being kicked out of the other part of the house because I'm too loud.
Is that a loud laugh?
I'm shocked, Michelle. I'm shocked.
I don't mean to shock.
Oh, she was in the same room as I was, so that was a loud room.
Good for you.
I just, since you brought me into the room, David, in that lovely manner, I just want to Rosalind, the universe, or it's Karen is the universe, has brought myself and Rosalind together. Amazing. I couldn't believe the conversation. So thank you. And to me, I drew in from the last session to David. The last session came into this session as well as like this. It's not just the story, but the flow of both of those commitments coming together.
Great.
I couldn't believe how much they lined up. So thank you for the release.
You're welcome. Who else would like to share something?
It seems that this is a perfect time to reflect on this because the solstice is coming.
Okay.
And just looking at Kim's beautiful background there, it seems like this time of come into that inner reflection and sort of cozy up around the fire and have a chat with yourself. And think about what is, and then think about what might be.
And where did you get to with that in your group, Erin?
Well, I was in the room with Kim, so I really got to enjoy the conversation with him and the ambiance of the background, because it just, I'm posting a labyrinth walk on the solstice. And so I've been thinking about how, I live in Saskatchewan, so it's pretty dark here, and how it is now then time to think about bringing light back into the world. So we're almost at the shortest day of the year here in North America. And then as we think about bringing the light back in, it's kind of like a natural closing down of this year. And then what is the light we want to bring in next year, and being deliberate and reflective of the light that we're bringing into our lives.
Wonderful. And Tom, good to see you.
How are we doing?
Doing well. Good
Yeah,
to see
sorry,
you.
my camera's not working. It's quite early in Japan.
Always appreciate that. The brave souls.
See me now.
Yeah. How about some of the other new people? Laurel. Oh, you were just gesturing.
Oh, me?
No, Laurel was gesturing. I thought maybe she wanted to speak, but she was just stretching or something. Okay, all good. Anybody else who hasn't had a chance to share yet? Just to get some more voices into the room. Yeah, Miriam, good to see you as well.
Hey, David. Hi, everyone. This was a really nice process. One of the things that I've been looking at is for myself, what resources, what have I not been doing or focused on? And one of the things that really came up for me is surrender and belief.
Okay.
It's about surrendering to what was so and believing in myself that whatever it is that I haven't been, or it's about not questioning myself, but more in having this like natural belief that I started having. And it's really interesting because I see that without truly believing in myself, there was little expansion in what I wanted to do or what I'm committed to doing. So it's kind of like, wow. But so I keep asking myself, and it's been a question that I've had for the last 10 days, what has me not believe? Or where do I go when I don't believe in myself? What are the stories that I'm like having stuck on that cause that conversation of non-belief? And so for me, it's been the shift of surrendering into what was going on, and so what? And one of the things that I've been working on this year very diligently is taking things lightly rather than anything else. Taking it lightly. It's my new polarity.
Oh, good for you.
Thanks. And it's great seeing you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Can I share something?
Yes, Elaine. Yes, we'd love to. Please.
Yeah, I like the 4-quadrant model, and because this is my first time, so the whole thing is a little bit new to me. I'm still digesting. So I found some similarities between the 4-quadrant model with the Mike Munro's 4-territory model. There are two. The 2 dimensions quite similar. Is external and external, but Munro's is from now to future, and this is from past to now. This is a little bit different. And for Munro's model is more about vertical development for a renewal one, but David's your one is much more possibilities, and there's a lot of more deeper. I mean, it's a lot of what if and what works, what matters. It's just a lot of questions to explore the internal. I love this one, but I'm still assimilating this.
I applaud you for just diving right in. Well done. The model is built around a rite of passage, so it has deep anthropological and sociological roots, and it also grew out of a lot of years I spent doing grief counseling and watching how people actually grieved, not how the book said they were supposed to grieve. So thank you. Welcome. All right. Oh, good. I'm gonna see if no, still nothing. So Karen, would you be
share the screen?
Yes, please.
Yes.
See if we can.
We're going to give it a whirl here. There you go.
See, I'm going to resource myself by asking for help because my system's not working.
Yes.
Yeah. So again, for today, it was really like hopefully helping you see something in a new way about your commitments and sense of readiness as you kind of bring the year to a close. We live in a time that seems increasingly uncertain and anxious, and so this ability to resource ourselves and to be really mindful of our resource level just feels paramount now. And I think a lot of the energy that we took for granted before and just kind of motored on is not available in the same way as it once was. And more of our clients and even ourselves need more things often. So hopefully this has been helpful these last 2 sessions. So Karen, if you could just put on the next slide, please. Our topic, so this year's topic was readiness. Next year's topic for these BCEs is trust. We're going to have a special 2-hour mini retreat in January. To be a 2-hour BCE, and I'm going to introduce the basic frame for my take on trust, but we're going to explore that together to see what would be valuable for you as we explore trust. And so we're going to kind of co-create some of that together in January. And then I'll share a little bit about how the BCEs are going to feed into what we have planned for next year, which I'm really, really excited about. So we can talk more about that. So I'm just going to spend some time talking and listening to each other. And then there's one more slide after that, Karen. As always, just again, think about where in your own life you can bring this conversation about readiness and a commitment. And then we've got our program started again in January, if any of those interest you, to take this kind of way of working into more depth, either in narrative coaching or in the ID way. So we can take the slides down now, Karen. That'd be great. Thank you. And if we can be of help to you, let us know. And Miriam, you had a question.
Yeah. Are you going to be going back? A few years ago, you did these amazing retreats, the one day, the few hours.
Yes.
Yeah. Are you going back to be doing that?
I don't know. I had my years unfolded very differently than I had planned. And I feel now I'm pretty much back to full strength. But it's kind of, so we're making some big changes to the business, and in part to allow me more freedom to go do retreats again, and also to finish my books. I've been, yeah. So the answer is yes. We're working on when and how, but it's part of the plan for next year. And I'm actually meeting with one of our faculty members who came down from the UK yesterday, and we're meeting tomorrow and the day after to kind of plan what those retreats might look like.
Oh,
Yeah.
great. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for asking. Any other parting questions or reflections before we call it a day? All good?
I do
I
want
just want to say thank you.
Oh, go ahead.
Thanks,
I'll
Robert.
take Lenny. Go ahead.
And Lenny had a comment.
Thank you, David. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. And Lenny.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention something that happened in the group and after the little breakout. I came up with a commitment that I want to make, and it looked like a goal. And I know you hate goals, so I thought, what about that? What's my resistance here? And I realized that commitment is not the same as a goal at all. It doesn't have an end point. It's an ongoing commitment, like let's say to a family, partner, a purpose in life. And then things pop up along the way as we living our life in that place of commitment. And maybe something turns into something, a project, a goal, or whatever. But that's not the key thing. That's just a means to an end. And it's not even an end. The commitment is what's most important in my life at this point.
Yeah.
So that was very clarifying, but that insight didn't come till after.
I'm glad you had it though. Yeah, and it's interesting too. Like sometimes both holding our commitments fiercely, but also lightly, because when we hold it lightly, it changes sometimes, or we have opportunities with it that we wouldn't have ever. Because oftentimes we can get tunnel vision with a commitment, and by holding it lightly, and this is why purpose and perspective are so important, because you start to see what the commitment really is, and it becomes deeper over time if you pay attention to it. So. All right, my friends, I've been now up for more hours than I want to count. So I'm going to go to bed now.
That sounds good. And folks, I don't know if you caught the nuance, but the time of the January 23rd, then the slide is from 12 to 2 Eastern time.
Yep.
So
Yes.
not three Eastern time, or however you adapt that to your own time zone. Okay. And take good care. And thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Karen.
Can't do
All
this.
right.
Everybody.
Holidays.
Thank you, everyone.
Adios.
Bye.
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 Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.